Well, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 5:30. So the regular agenda, we're going to consider the approval of the minutes from the July 10th. I can't believe it's been that long meeting.
You ain't getting out that easy.
Come on. You almost made it. There you go. Train tracks. We've all heard that.
Sorry about that.
All right, so the meeting is called to order. We are looking at considering approval for the minutes from the July 10th. Does anybody have any additions or any corrections from the minutes?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, all for approval.
Aye.
That's everybody. Okay, so now we're gonna receive the presentation, for the final draft of the airport layout plan project. And Colin, do you want to introduce everyone again?
Just briefly.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, our aviation planning consultant Wolpert is with us again. Mr. Tony Davis, the project manager, and Jeff Borwick are here to present. And I gave you their background last time, so I'll skip over that. But they've been working really hard and they've been a joy to work with, and I appreciate all the hard work. They've got a wonderful team. Very talented team, and you'll see some of that in tonight's presentation, and you saw it, a little bit of that last time as well. So they're wrapping up this 10-month planning process. It's a very robust. If you had a chance to go through the website and read the chapters they've developed, the narratives, a very in-depth analysis of where we're at and where we're going. So. Tony is planning to pick up where he left off last time and go over what's the modifications since last time and the additions that are made to the plan since last time, and then go over. And I think the key to this one will be the funding, the implementation plan of trying to make it all happen, and then briefly go over the review process and where we go from here and how we get this thing wrapped up. He'll take questions at the end from you guys, and then if you'd like, the audience as well. So, Tony?
Thanks, Colin. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back. This has been a great project. Really enjoyed working with Colin in the airport and all of you. We've taken a lot of consideration from your comments during our first visit into this updated plan, and so I'll show you a little bit of that and how we're, like Colin said, going through completing the process. We'll talk about some of the phasing of our projects, some of the costs that we may see, and then what those steps are to end the project. So just as kind of a real brief overview, this is a 20-year plan for the airport. It's required by the FAA and TxDOT to have an up-to-date airport layout plan in order to receive funding from the FAA through the TxDOT block grant program. And so the last plan that was completed in 2008 has been updated, and we'll be submitting that soon with the city approval. The real idea behind the layout plan is to demonstrate a safe and orderly development of the airport, how to meet design standards that are established by the FAA, but also meet future demand of potential users. So the steps in the master planning and airport planning process is to first investigate what the operations of the airport look like. The inventory that we call it is to really kind of capture all the information about the airport. I showed you the slide from our last visit, but just to kind of give you maybe a little bit of refresher on where we were. So the inventory and activity forecast is really just kind of understanding where the airport is today and where it's going to go in the future. And then solutions are how we're going to meet future demands, design requirements, what the wishes of the community, the airport board, the airport, the city, encapsulating all that into a development plan. And then lastly, where we are now and what you haven't seen yet is the implementation. How do we get there in this 20-year timeframe and potentially beyond? You'll see that some of the development that we show may be reasonable within the 20 years, maybe not. It really all kind of depends upon the demand, the interest to develop. We encourage airports not to develop too soon. You can run into a lot of cost issues, vacancies and things like that. So the idea is to develop when that opportunity presents itself. So this is the last plan that you saw. This is where we ended the last presentation, is a future development. We show some runway improvements as extensions, widening, a lot of landside development, including hangars, terminal building, a robust apron area, really hangars of all types to accommodate all general aviation aircraft, from single-engine Cessnas all the way up to Challengers and Gulfstreams. We have a hotel and restaurant there shaded in orange, but you can really see that this is really the airport growing up. So we took a lot of the input that you provided during our last visit, and we've refined that concept just a little bit to add some certain things that you wanted to see and maybe make some slight modifications. So this is the new development plan, and I'll highlight some of the changes that we talked about. If you recall, we talked about an airport traffic control tower. We have that on the west side of the airport. On the east side, we added a turnaround for the corporate area where we have some large corporate hangars and box hangars there on the south end of the terminal area to provide a kind of a way for aircraft to bypass one another if they need to. The Civil Air Patrol taxi lane connection, that's just really a future taxi lane extension or connector to provide some access or through the fence type operation for the Civil Air Patrol. The school is interested, the flight school is interested in having dedicated fueling services, so we added that next to their hangar. We also wanted to identify at the bottom of the screen the aeronautical use preservation area. We don't have really a design concept for that at this point. I mean, all the development that we've shown would be accommodated within the 20-year period and potentially beyond. But that we want to identify in the airport layout plan the future aeronautical use in order to kind of preserve that ability for it to be future hangars or whatever you want it to be in aviation-related terms. We've shown closer to the runway, we're showing a connector there that's shifted. That's really an FAA design standard. The FAA doesn't like to see taxiways leading directly from taxi lanes going across a taxiway right to a runway without a pilot having to make a conscious turn. So we've introduced kind of a turn there by shifting the taxiway connector. And so those are the modifications that we made through the development plan. Really not earth-shattering changes, really, just some slight modifications. But that's what we're hoping to take forward into our development plan. So a big part of what I wanted to show today is the phasing and how we kind of get from one project to another and how we go from where we are today to what you just saw on the screen. We developed some suggested phasing, and like I said before, demand really leads a lot of this. So if there's interest tomorrow from a hangar developer that they want to build a row of T-hangars, well, we may not be showing that in the first phase of our development here, but if there's interest by that party, there's demand for it, well, by all means, let's pursue that type of project if there's interest in doing that. So that's really all I really going to want to say is that keep in mind that this phasing is very flexible. and it doesn't pigeonhole you into the phasing that we're showing. The important thing is that it's shown on the airport layout plan, and that, all that I've shown you is gonna be there. The TxDOT really isn't too concerned about phasing. They're more interested in, is it shown on this plan? Okay, that, we've checked that box, we can move on to the next, whether it's environmental reviews, engineering, coming up with the funding, all of that comes next. So the important thing just to keep in mind is that we have that phasing, or a suggested phasing, and it's flexible. Now, the first phase that we've identified is what we call near-term, short-term. It's the next 5 years. Then an intermediate phase is the 5 years after that. The long-term phase, phase 3, is the second 10-year term of our 20-year planning horizon. And then the phase 4, we're calling ultimate. It's beyond the 20-year time frame. Again, if there's an interest in, say, someone coming to this airport, that may require a longer runway. We're showing that runway today as an ultimate project beyond the 20-year time frame. But if the operations at the airport change beyond what we've been able to forecast, knowing what we know today, then that project could be moved up to an earlier phase. It's all about the justification of what we want to build. So in phase 1, what we're identifying is really the primary focus area is the terminal development area. And so here we have the entrance road being project 1 of phase 1. And so each one of the areas that you see outlined is a project within this phase. So phase 1 has about, maybe 7 or 8 projects. The entrance road being project 1. And then project 2 is the earthwork, retaining wall fence, and pavement removal to create the apron area. We've separated that out from the development of the terminal area because the earthwork is such a large component of that project. There's going to be a substantial amount of earthwork there. Then phase 3 is to build a section of the apron, aircraft apron in front of the terminal. Then project 4 is building the terminal, a section of the terminal. We're projecting maybe half of the terminal would be needed within the 20-year time frame or within the near intermediate term. And then other facilities related to the terminal would be built. So we have storage buildings, fuel farm, maintenance building, part of the parking lot. All of that could be built in phase 4 after the entrance road and the apron is built. And then phase 5, we have there the development of a taxi lane extension and to build a section of box hangars to accommodate some general aviation demand. Then project 6, we have the development of T hangars up on the right side of the screen. T hangars for taxiway, apron, hangar development. Just being able to accommodate that next level of based aircraft and growth. And you can see what we try to do is accommodate various types of aircraft at different stages throughout this phasing approach. And then phase 7, and kind of in close conjunction with phase 6, is we have the expansion and development of flight school areas. So we have, one is the development of 2 large hangars for flight school on the right side there in pink. And then also shaded in pink is the taxi lane expansion and apron area for flight school. So we've expanded the tie-down area. We've expanded flight school hangar area, training facilities. All that can be kind of captured in the area where they are today. So that represents phase 1. It looks like I may have missed a couple of things there. Project 2 was a detention pond. We're just looking kind of long-term, where are we going to have water runoff? Where do we need to store that water? That detention pond area is a possibility. It could also be developed for aeronautical use. Likely aeronautical hangar-type structures would be privately funded. So we don't have to show all of the hangar development. If this were to be a kind of a change in the development plan, we would either do what we call a pen and ink change to the airport layout plan, or if it's privately funded completely, the project may not even have to go through TxDOT. They may not require a change to the airport layout plan. What we're showing is just really where can we preserve water runoff in this really kind of densely populated. We have a lot of impervious surface that we're introducing. Where are we going to store that water? The other project that I failed to mention here, Project 4, we're relocating the AWAS and the segmented circle to the other side of the airfield in order to construct the taxiways, hangars that are shown in Project 6. So it's kind of like a systematic development here in Phase 1. Really, the initial focus is on the terminal area, but then the later focus, we're trying to accommodate more based aircraft growth. In Phase 2, the focus is now on large hangar development. We have let me see, first project, we have the expansion of the apron area to accommodate AAM, vertical takeoff landing aircraft on the apron. So this wouldn't be a part of the initial apron project. We would add this in a later phase to accommodate electric vertical takeoff aircraft as well as helicopters. We would have an electric charging station there, conveniently located to accommodate those aircraft. Then in Project 2, we have some roadway development, taxiway apron development, and then a series of the large box hangars to accommodate businesses and corporate aircraft. Phase 3, now we're doing some more development on the south side of the terminal area. We have those large community and transient storage hangars on the existing apron. So we're widening the apron a little bit to accommodate the staging of their aircraft and taxiing. On Phase 4, we further developed that area and introduced the hotel and restaurant and the parking associated with that. And then Phase 5, we go on the other side of the entrance road and we expand that area to include hangar development, taxiway development. Project 6, we make use of the existing apron and taxi lane area near the flight school where we can develop additional box hangars, 6 box hangars and roadway parking expansion. And then Project 7, we now kind of move east of the existing flight school and hangar area, and we're now starting to build some T hangars and box hangars in that area. We widen the taxiway. Here we'll have what we call dual lane taxi lanes leading to this area for the ultimate build out of a large complex of T hangars and box hangars. So accommodating, again, that various levels of general aviation throughout these phases as we progress through the development plan. And lastly, in this one, Project 8 is a run-up area near the runway 36 end. Today, the runway 18 end has a small run-up area for aircraft that are, doing their aircraft run-up and magneto checks, all that. We're providing here a bypass as well near the 36 end for aircraft to bypass while others may do a run-up. So in Phase 3, we're really kind of centered more on the secondary terminal expansion and the growth of based aircraft. So here we have in Project, Project 1, we expand the box hangar development. So extending the existing taxi lane and apron area further east and building another series of box hangars there. In Project 2, we do and the expansion going north of the terminal, or I'm sorry, of the T-hangar, box hangar area to expand that level of general aviation growth. Project 3, again, we're expanding that smaller aircraft, a lot of T-hangar development, improving the access to that area, and we'll expand the fence line on that side. And then Project 4, we move back over to the terminal area, and we expand. Now we're kind of predicting here that in the 10 to 15-year time frame, there may be the need to expand the terminal more. So we've provided this view of what the ultimate terminal building looks like. In the earlier phase, we did half of that building. Here, we're coming back into phase 3 and doing the second half of the terminal building expansion to include a aircraft canopy and expansion of the terminal area, FBO, administrative areas, conference areas, as well as a rental car facility. Again, like I said, a lot of this phasing can change based on what happens with our first phase. You know, what we do in the first phase might really kind of create a boom for moving something up if there's a lot of interest, or if something changes in this city, that if there's a dynamic that changes in this community that calls for earlier development, these phases can be moved around. Then the last project in the third phase is to construct the airport traffic control tower. What we've assumed here is that this is a staffed contract tower. It's not run by the FAA. It would be built with assistance from the FAA, but it would be staffed by an FAA contract company that would manage the air traffic at the airport. That's typical of airports of this size. They're not directly staffed by the FAA, but more of a airspace management company that works on their behalf. Here we have the development of a road to access that. This area would have to include utilities for the tower. We did an initial siting and line of sight study for that location. It would call for a traffic control tower of about 45 feet, which is pretty typical for a small general aviation airport. It really has to do most with the line of sight to the runway ends, obstructions that might be in the way. You wouldn't have very much of that here. You'd have a really good line of sight of the entire approach and runway in front of them. And then in the ultimate phase, or phase 4, we are really kind of focused most on runway design standards, runway extension. So as you may recall, in our plan, we extended the runway on both ends to achieve at least a length of 6,000 feet. Today, the runway is 5,000. We're showing a 900-foot extension on each end. So obviously, we're a little higher than the 6,000 feet. What we're wanting to do is to propose a possible various extension on each end based upon what that critical aircraft is going to be at the time. We wanted to show what is really maximal achievement of the runway extension, and then later when we have a defined critical aircraft that exceeds what it is today, we have the possibility to achieve a total length of 6,800 if we need to. Also in this phase, we have the runway widening with an increase in critical design aircraft, say looking at type like a Challenger type general aviation aircraft, that kind of category. They would require a 100-foot wide runway. Today it's 75 feet. So we would widen the runway there. We have some taxiway fillet designs that are changed. The FAA has gotten away from the traditional taxiway fillet designs. A fillet is just kind of the turn from one taxiway to another. It's usually just kind of the sweeping curb type turn. That has changed now. It's more angular to allow for what they call judgmental oversteering, and for larger aircraft to be able to make that turn from one taxiway to another. So this really kind of shows what the ultimate phase is. Again, that it's possible that could be moved up. So these are rough cost estimates for each phase. What we've attempted to do here on our cost estimates is show what is eligible. So our cost breakdowns may not really be the true sources of or of money for each of these projects. What we're more focused on is, of these projects that we're showing, could the money come from the FAA and the state for that project? And that's what this breakdown shows. Most likely, that won't happen because there's a limit to how much money you're going to get from the FAA and the state. You're not going to get in the next 5 years $43 million from the FAA or the state. But that's what's eligible out of the projects that we've shown. Eligibility has to do with facilities that are basically common use in nature. They don't produce revenue for whoever built it. It's more like airfield development, taxiways, aprons, those sorts of things that all the airport users are going to use from time to time. That's how we're showing this cost breakdown. A lion's share of this of phase one development, again, is terminal. We've shown that a lot of the project money needed for that terminal project will have to come from a private source. A lot of the terminal development is not eligible, or if it is, it's highly competitive. We're at the tail end of a lot of FAA terminal funding opportunity. That's kind of waning now, and a lot of the private sources are going to really have to put in for that. In phase two, you can see it's a much lower cost development from the airport and the city or the town's city's perspective, or the federal and state share. That's because the majority of the development that we're showing on phase two is hangar related. Hangar development is not eligible. It is federally. It is somewhat eligible from the state, but it's at the bottom rung of eligibility. It's highly competitive. Most airports don't get it. There's a ranking that the FAA and the states use to provide funds for development at an airport. Hangar development is, although it may be eligible, most of it is not going to happen you're not going to get funding assistance from them. So better not to count on that. And again, it's not eligible at the federal level. On phase three, we're showing a lot of hangar development, but we're also showing terminal expansion, a lot of apron expansion, taxiways, aprons. That's what's accounting for the federal and state share. And then the ultimate, you can see a lot of money is then coming in the ultimate time frame because that's runway development. All of that is eligible. Or taxiway development, all of it is eligible. None of it would likely come from private sources. It would all be federal and state funded, most likely. And then there would be a local share. There's a local share for any money that the city receives. There's an obligation for the city to pay part of the development cost. Typically, it's a 90%, 5%, and 5% split on eligible projects, which means 90% of the funds come from the FAA, 5% comes from TxDOT, and 5% comes from the local sponsor or the city. So in the grand scheme of things and all the development that we're showing, the city share would be about $8.2 million. The federal share is almost $118 million, and then the private share is just over $175 million. Again, this is beyond a 20-year time frame. It could be a 30 or 40-year time frame. The costs that we've shown here are all in 2025 dollars, just current dollars. The reason that we're doing that is we don't want to pigeonhole one project into a phase. We don't want to further exacerbate the focus on a particular date in mind for a development project because it could likely shift.
I got a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
You said, so 44 million federal
Uh,
state is eligible
Oh, on phase one.
on phase one.
It-
I'm only
yeah.
worried about phase one.
Sure, yeah, about 44 million, that's what's eligible from the federal and the state share. But
What's a guess? You
What-
said
what
we're not
would-
gonna get 44 million. What's a guess?
my guess would probably be 10% of that. Yep. That's just my guess. Another planner would have a totally different guess, I'm sure. And a lot of that would be steered by the apron development. That's what they would look at. They're not gonna look at the terminal. They're gonna say, that ranks way down here, but that apron, that's what they're interested in. It's that common use apron.
I understand that 10% is just a swag, but is that based on funds that are available or based on what we could justify or qualify for? Or not qualify, but how well we justify it?
At both, yeah, it's kind of my best guess based on the money that's out there. TxDOT has a lot of money, but they have a lot of airports. So it's going to be competitive in nature. You're gonna compete with it's what we call discretionary money. The airport receives every year entitlement money. They're entitled to that $150,000 every year, no matter what. Then they get that for whatever development that they want to put it toward, as long as that is eligible project. So our planning project that we worked on, that's an eligible project. That was funded from the FAA through this TxDOT block grant program. And that entitlement funds were used to help pay for that project. Once we get into more significant numbers beyond that $150,000 a year, it's not going to take you far in this plan, then they start looking at discretionary money. So every year, the FAA hands their block grant states money to say, okay, this is for you to distribute on your discretion, and TxDOT is going to rank the projects that are before them, and they're going to decide, where are we going to send that discretionary money? And my prediction is that you'll get some, but you're not going to get all that you need, and that's kind of my basis.
Thank you.
And I may be getting the cart in front.
I'm sorry, if we do get the money, how long can we hold on to that money while we get the rest of it to complete whatever section we're trying to complete?
4 years.
Okay, so if we're eligible and we are granted that, we have 4 years to come up with the other money to be able to
Right, and
finish
you're-
whatever we're trying to do.
You're allowed to use, well, Jeff, correct me if, can they use discretionary, can they bank discretionary money?
I don't know that you can bank discretionary. You can bank your NPE,
you-
your 150,000.
Yeah, you can bank the entitlement money that I mentioned, but discretionary might be at each year, within the year that you get it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna, so the terminal, the apron is about 7.5 million. I know it's not on this, it's just something else I have, but that's
Right,
ballpark.
right.
So then we gotta come up with another 3, based on 4.5. Am I in the ballpark?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that can be 5% city, private funds too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the city would come up with that, or from private funds.
Okay.
So if it's not private funds, if the city were to go issue a bond for the balance of what is to do that project, then that would be another
So we got
source.
a bond, does it match? Those matching funds can apply to this? Because we passed a bond, it's just sitting there.
Yeah, I don't see why not, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the plan was to use the matching funds for the terminal project. I mean, it wasn't set in stone. There's a lot of eligible projects for that money. The general consensus over since the bond was passed, and even before, was we'd like to use the lion's share of that on the terminal project. Now, whether it's the terminal or the apron is yet to be determined, because like Tony said, TxDOT, I think they've promised us as much as only $600,000 towards the terminal, which
That's-
won't get you much of a terminal these days.
Terminal won't do much good without it.
So,
Yeah.
if a private, if we can raise private money for the remainder of the terminal project, then it leaves, yes, we have the rest of the $6.7 million to spend on the apron. And there's other things, design and acquisition involved with all that, but, if we can't find the money for the terminal, then some of that bond money has to go towards the terminal as well. So, it really, it's whatever the big picture is for that project, the road, the apron and the terminal.
Yeah, but you can't, but, I mean, again,
We
the
have
terminal
to,
building does no good without the apron,
Right,
so we
right.
need to have the apron.
so call it a $15-20 million project, we have to come up with half of it, and, or over half of it, at least, I would say.
And the,
Because the terminal project isn't eligible.
But the apron is.
It could be up to 95% eligible if we're lucky. We did a letter of intent for that, last December. It's on their radar. It's gonna take a little pushing, I think, to get it through. So, there may be some legislative, avenues to take on that, to secure that. It's highly competitive. Like Tony says, it's highly competitive. That apron money is well beyond our entitlement grants. So ignore that pile. We're into the competitive pile of money, and so we're competing, and it's a dogfight.
So can you tell us again, I know you have, Colin, but what's the time frame on that? Like, you ask for it, when do you hear about it? When do you get to apply again? Can you walk us through that?
So TxDOT's asking for these things at least 3 years out.
Okay, and you have done whatever we're supposed to do?
We issued the notice of intent for the terminal project and the terminal apron last December. And actually, the terminal, the $600,000 showed up on the AIP, I believe, for 28. So it was an easy one for them to do. So it's on there. The apron is floating. We had hoped that the design for that project would have also been funded in 28, but they held back on that. So, but to answer your question, at least 3 years. So,
Okay.
I mean, kind of like what Tony was saying, we won't get all this money in the next 5 years because honestly, the next 3 years have already been
Already been-
allocated.
yeah,
So,
okay.
so we're banging on, we're trying to get those last 2 years. And it's gonna take a lot of work to get that because it's this IIJA money that, some of this entitlement money's running out. Like you said, we're at the end of the cycle on some of this. So it's purely competitive. Looking for 20, for 29 and for 30.
So if we had $4 million donated to build a ramp, how long is it gonna take to get it done?
it's a wag, I'm not an engineer, but I would guess 2 or 3 years. You have a substantial amount of earthwork to do. So account for that. Design and engineering is at least 6 to 8 months.
I know somebody built Amazon warehouse in 9 months, so, and that was a hell of a lot of dirt to move there, so.
Well, they do all their stuff prefab. They bring panels from outside and they throw up walls in 2 days.
But a ramp doesn't require walls.
Yeah, but it requires,
Lot of dirt.
require a lot of earthwork and bringing in fill, shuffling fill. We're gonna have a site, on the airport hopefully where we can, dump fill that we don't need to preserve that for future fill needs.
Okay,
But, yeah,
2 to 3 years.
that's kind of my guess. Yeah. There'll be some environmental reviews to go through, design and engineering, permitting, so on, and then construction.
I mean, if that 3 or 4 million is not enough to cover the whole project and we're relying on federal or state funds, it's gonna extend that 2 or 3 years.
So we're
If
way
you say, if you
outside.
said someone privately donated $7 or $8 million that could cover the whole project, I think that's the 2 or 3 years. I think if you're, if that's only half of the project, the
So based
funding.
on what you said, then we're already outside project phase one by 2 years.
Depending on where your money's coming from.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's see, looking at, kind of our next steps, we have an airport layout plan to submit to TxDOT that shows this development. This is what we call the future and ultimate airport layout plan sheet of the set. Your set, I think, will have 16 sheets in it. So this is one of those sheets. This is probably the most important. It gets signed by the city. It's what the FAA and TxDOT will look at to say, okay, is it on your ALP for future development? Is it eligible? The first mark for them to make that determination is that the project is shown here. So that's one of the sheets. We like to show the development that you've seen so far in a lot more pleasing, kind of a lot less line work, a lot easier to understand. This has got a lot of different surfaces and critical areas on it that they like to see. An example is the airport airspace drawing. That's another sheet that gets submitted with the airport set. This shows the approaches on each end of the runway. You can see on the south end, we have a lot more surfaces there. That red and yellow kind of extends south. That's because of the precision approach. On the north side, we don't have that kind of approach. We have a non-precision. What this drawing is meant to do is display in a top-down plan view where the obstructions to air navigation might be. And then some of our later sheets will zoom into each end of the runway and we evaluate what those obstructions are. So at the very beginning of this project, we did aerial imagery of the airport, and then from that imagery, we did what's called photogrammetry, which allows us to determine the heights of everything around the airport in this ring to understand what the elevations of objects are. And so that's what's shown here. Nothing too serious here. There are ways to mitigate obstructions. We mark in light, you know, when you go around an airport and you see the balls on the wires and the lights on the buildings, things like that. That's the mitigation for obstructions. A lot of these obstructions are natural, you know, trees, bushes, ground. Those can be easily mitigated as well. So, some of our next steps, of course, we want to incorporate the input that you have today into the plan. The plan chapters are done and the airport layout plan set is done, but we can make modifications. They're not submitted yet, so we can get back into them if we need to. But our next step is really, submit that to the airport layout plan set to TxDOT. They get the first look, they review it and give us any comments. They typically take about 2 or 3 weeks to do that type of review. We typically turn it around in a couple of days, and then it gets submitted to the FAA. I have 6 airport layout plans into the FAA right now for review. The oldest one is about 7 months. So this is just going to be in line with the others. And it's not just mine. It's every company, every consultant has got other ALPs into TxDOT for review. Or, I'm sorry, into FAA for review. TxDOT has been a lot more responsive. Then the government shutdown really hasn't helped. That's slowed the process down a bit. They are not doing a whole lot of reviews right now, but we are allowed to file them. So we kind of get our place in line. After that is all done, we post, we print, we deliver the final product, and then you kind of move on to the next stage, whether it's seeking funding for the projects, reaching out to your congressmen, senators, helping get support, reaching out to TxDOT leaders for their support. That has been successful. before.
Can you
Our-
do that concurrently?
Yeah, I mean, as long as this is submitted into TxDOT and they have the plan, they've reviewed it, yeah, they'll consider that a realistic project in their mind. So, yeah, you would want to get on that as soon as you can. Yes.
We're looking at basically summer of 26, based on 7 months.
Yeah. So, our schedule shows, you know, here we are in October and we're done with our project documentation. Our airport layout plan is, wrapped up, and so we're ready to kind of end the project and turn this over to TxDOT and the FAA. And we'll address their comments and deliver what they're expecting, of course, but, yeah, we're here at the tail end. So, our tech guys, our CAD designers, our draftsmen and all that, like to play around with some of this stuff, so they developed a conceptual rendering of the development plan. So, this is what your airport would look like yesterday if it was, developed all out. You can see the runway extensions there, the airport traffic control tower. You got the apron and the terminal buildings. The hangars are all in place, so we'd just like to kind of represent here what it might look like if this were all built out and what it will look like in the future. So, any other questions? Yeah, nice if it could be just like that, right?
$300 million check.
I'll have it tomorrow. John's gonna write it.
Okay, does any of the board have any questions, Taylor?
Not immediately.
Okay. Kelly? John's been asking. Ricky?
Good job, thank you.
Thank you.
The tower,
Yes, sir.
and I know that's down the road, but
Way down the road.
what, I wouldn't, hopefully we can move it up. What timeline on something like that?
In terms to
Whenever you-
build or when should we
When you pull the
implement
trigger-
it?
Yeah, whenever you approach whomever,
The triggering event,
yeah,
right?
when you
Right.
trigger it,
Uh-huh.
and I know it's another guess, but how long does it take to get one?
It would be a fairly quick process. I would say, when you're ready to pull the trigger, it can be about a year, 2 years to build a tower. I mean, a lot of it obviously has to do with funding, but being the fact that it's a contract tower, that's a whole different category of FAA control tower. The FAA will go through their review process of a recommended tower that the consultant provides that is approved by the city, and they'll review that. But they don't go into the strict design of the tower and siting requirements that they have for their own tower. So if we were Newark Airport and they're building a new tower, it goes through the FAA's process. That process, from what I've heard, is over 5 years now, of just to get going into the process. Huge backlog. This being a contract tower is a totally different picture. They do review it. They look for there's 18 criteria that they review, from sighting, sun exposure, noise, light, all that kind of stuff. They'll evaluate in the analysis that goes into a formal air traffic control sighting study. But it's about a year or two long process, from say, we're ready to go to, okay, we're ready to build now. We've got it and it's ready to go.
We're way below the threshold,
In terms of operations,
operational threshold.
yeah, the FAA is not going to be eager to contract with the level of operations that you have here. So that's a different question, is what's going to, incentivize them to say, yeah, we think you really need one. The numbers that I've heard is over 150,000 operations is part of the equation that goes into helping justify a tower, but that's not the only thing. There are a lot of other drivers to that. There's the type of airfield that it is, if we have intersecting runways, how much flight training do we have? There's a lot of dynamics that go into helping justify the tower. So operations is not the only one. The fact that you have a very active flight school here is a big incentive to help bring a traffic control tower here. And the more diverse type operations that you have, once you get heavy, fast GA aircraft flying in and out of here all the time, coupled with a flight school, it's a red flag.
It's an issue sometimes.
Yeah.
So like between Hidden Springs Golf Course and the Amazon Warehouse and Eaton and SFA and UT and all that, there's gonna be a lot of fast, bigger airplanes coming in here very soon,
Yeah.
so.
Well, the contract tower program is meant to put more burden on the airport sponsor than the FAA. Okay, it's meant to be funded by the airport sponsor. So it's not as much of an FAA initiative. And that's why we'd recommend, because if it goes into an FAA initiative, we're nowhere near that yet. Any other questions?
Does the board have any more questions?
No, that's, I can save them for later, yeah.
All right, does anybody have a question that hasn't been answered, or Shannon, you're usually good at this. You got anything? Come on.
Shannon, did you do the address and all that stuff here? Yeah, Shannon Conklin, 3516 Churchill Drive, Nacogdoches, Texas. Most of you know where I live or been to my house, so. Great presentation, by the way. A lot of work that goes into that, so thank you for that. I think we need to start biting off small pieces of what's next in the airport. And obviously a tarmac, I think, an apron is what's next. A terminal building, and I don't know if you can phase out the terminal or the apron. You showed some phasing of it, but you know, let's say it's 200,000 square feet. Maybe you do 75,000 square feet starting out. I think that's going to be important. You touched on Hidden Springs Golf Course. I know Colin has run some numbers with other airports that have welcomed new developments. I think up in Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken, the jet traffic is significant. It's not a little bit. It's significant increase in traffic, and we obviously want to capture that traffic if we can capture it. We're already running against a deficit because we're going to have a runway shut down for a predetermined amount of time next year, coinciding with the opening of the golf course. So, and I think most of us that are pilots and have flown, whether we fly for private or fly for leisure like I do or fly for a living, once a pilot gets established at an airport flying their customers, they're going to go to that airport because they were treated fairly and you know, they got everything set up. It's familiar. So I think we're going to lose an opportunity there. But that is what it is. You know, we're victim of circumstance right now. But I think the important thing is look at how do we phase this. This is a macro level view. If you look at this screen here, it's absolutely macro. It's 20, 30 years, and some of it will never happen, most likely. Or it'll be some variation to this. But what is imminent and what can we control? And that becomes the apron, I think, is the next step, is an apron, an FBO building. I speak here not only as a stakeholder at the airport, but also stand here and speak on behalf of Bill Elliott and the foundation and the money they're willing to step up and put in. And they're willing to put in money. I've talked to all of our legislators and future legislators, should they get elected to be our state senator. There's a lot of support for the development of this airport. The UT things you cited, John, UT system. You've got continued commercial and economic development here. You've got Hidden Springs. The UT system in itself is bringing record numbers of folks to town. So we need to do something to set this airport up for the future. Status quo is not going to work. If we don't evolve now, we're going to digress, and that's not an option for us. So I think looking at the apron, there's a lot of match funding out there, private money. I don't know what the cost is. And that's the one thing that, you know, Mike, you and I have had this conversation. What is the ultimate cost of building an apron and or an apron and an FBO building? Is that 10 million? Is that 30 million? I have no clue. So I think the next logical step after this, coinciding with, or as this thing is pending with TxDOT, is can we start an engineering study to see what a phased approach to an apron would look like, and then building out an FBO building? And what kind of monies through the bond that could be triggered to support that, and where can we get the private money to step up? I don't know if private money's $1 million or $5 million. Don't know yet. But we don't know what it's gonna cost to build out that first phase. I think that would be a huge step in the right direction, that could attract traffic. It can handle the traffic. I know a lot of airplanes don't come here. They either go to Lufkin or go to Longview because of our ability to park the aircraft. You know, an air traffic control tower, I think, you know, as I've polled a lot of folks in the aviation community, and business leaders, I mean, it's a no-brainer. We want one. How can we fund it? I know it's privately funded largely, but perhaps we can get some money allocated to that. But I think that's important just for the safety of the airport community. But my 2 cents on it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Anybody else from the community? Go, come on, Bobby. Come on. Yep. Tell us who you are.
That's just a question as a,
Can you state your name?
yeah,
Okay.
it's Robert Smith or Bobby Smith. 2616 Glen Hollow Drive. Yeah. I mean, it looks fabulous, and I only wish I was gonna be alive to see it all. But, the one thing that popped up in my mind was the water retention pond where it's located, because there may be beauty in that, but I worry about planes being close to water, that close, if they have to.
We won't have water all the time.
So
It's just,
for the most part, it would not be like a lake or a pond that's there.
Yeah,
Got
it's a detention pond. Retention holds water, detention disperses it over 12 hours.
Perfect. That answers my question. I
good
didn't want to
question.
see a big lake close to where I would taxi into it. So
good question. Thank you, Bobby.
And I might add that the implementation plan that we'll deliver, I'm sorry. The implementation plan that we'll deliver will have more detailed cost estimates than, that you've seen in this presentation. And in addition, the appendix to our narrative report will have detailed rough cost estimates for each of the projects within each phase. Again, they're rough order of magnitude. They're not engineering level estimates, but we do take local bid unit prices. We quantified everything that we're showing in our development plan, including the grading necessary for the runway extensions and the aprons. And then we've based our quantities and our local unit prices on that. So we'll have some pretty good cost estimates for what you see here. Thing is if we talk about dividing the project or narrowing that project down, then, you know, that's gonna change those costs, obviously. You know, ideally, right? If we're gonna expand the apron by, or add half of the apron that we're showing today, then that's gonna change what the unit costs are. But that's why we broke out.
Tony, when will
our-
those be available, those numbers?
Yes, yeah, we'll post those on the project website. The appendices are ready. The chapter, itself, chapter 7 is available now. But the appendices I will post this week.
Okay.
And they feed right into those cost estimates in chapter 7. Oh.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Going once, going twice? Nope, thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna get an update now on the rehabilitation project for the runway. Colin, is that you?
Yes, ma'am.
Come on,
Bring your shield.
yeah.
Hide behind Mike over here. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Tony. Yeah, great job. It's very impressive, very impressive. For those who don't get my updates by email, I'm gonna kind of go over this project or if, you know, per the summary that was in the packet, for those that are new to the project. But TxDOT, the Transportation Commission approved funding for our runway project. This is a rehabilitation, pavement rehabilitation and strengthening project for our runway. It's estimated to be a $6 million project, and our cost share is $300,000 or 5%. We're going to use bond funds to match that, to pay our $300,000. This will be TxDOT Aviation will lead and control the bidding, the letting, construction of this project as our agent. So they take care of all the paperwork and they control the contractor. KSAE is our consultant engineer for the project, for those of you that don't know. The project is fully designed right now, and it's sitting on the shelf ready to go. Tentatively, this runway construction, the runway construction portion of this project is scheduled to start around May 18th of this spring. They estimate that portion of the project, so the runway will be closed during that portion of the project. They estimate 10 to 12 weeks for that phase of the project to complete the paving. And there's a lot of other trigger work that it's not just going out there and laying asphalt. There's all kinds of ancillary work to go with it, filling cracks, leveling up the shoulders, adjusting the lights. There's all kinds of good stuff. So that's, you say, well, why does it take that long? There's a lot that goes into it. That would, if we start around May 18th, that should wrap up the runway phase around August 10th, if according to the construction schedule. Once the runway portion is complete, we would reopen the runway to traffic and start a phased approach to addressing our paralleling and crossing taxiways, connecting taxiways. It is our hope to get an overlay, to overlay all the connected taxiways and the parallel taxiways to build strength on those so that the strength of our taxiway keeps up with the strength of our runway. But if everything runs over budget, that would be downgraded. That project would be downgraded to a seal coat, which really offers it extends the life of the pavement for a little bit, but it doesn't offer any structural strength. But by increasing, this started at a $5 million project. They've increased it to $6 in hopes to really capture that overlay for the taxiway. So they'll close down the south end of the taxiway A and work on that while the north half of taxiway A and the connecting taxiways are open. That would leave the runway open. In there, depending on the winds, there could be some, in the size of your airplane, there could be some back taxiing during that phase. And then when they get the south end of the taxiway A done, they'll open it up and close the north end of the taxiway A. And just like on the other portion, there would be the runway and partial taxiway functionality with some probable back taxiing involved. The sum total of the taxiway work is estimated at 10 to 12 weeks itself, so that makes it a 20 to 24 week project in total. That would, if the schedule holds, that would put the taxiway work done at the beginning of October, around the 9th. And then they would have to come back after the asphalt cures and do the permanent striping. There would be temporary striping while the pavement cures, and then they'll come back and do a permanent striping. The closure for that, I'm told, is just days. It's not necessarily weeks for that striping. Just a reminder, there's going to be no dimensional changes except the total pavement thickness for any of the taxiways or runways. So we're not extending the runway, we're not making it wider, we're just we're giving it a new surface, and with that, because we're not milling the asphalt, we're putting asphalt on top of asphalt, we get more strength from our pavement section that way. I do expect our weight ratings to go up, bring us a little closer to our peers on that. And that'll help with the golf course traffic, the heavier aircraft. And again, the displaced thresholds that Tony has in his plan would not be part of this project. But that's it. I mean, that's where we're at now. I mean, the bidding for this will probably hit the papers in January, probably. It takes a long time to bid this out and have meetings with the bidders and then comb through the bids and get all the paperwork. So you'll start seeing some action. Well, you might not see it if you're not in that circle, but there'll be some action as early as December or January, as this thing gets ramped up. So that's the update.
I got a couple questions.
Okay.
First one I think is easy. While it's shut down, and we got this AWAS that they wanna move across the other side, can we bore under the runway while it's shut down and just, so we don't have to do it twice? Put a conduit under there or whatever? I mean, it's shut down.
Well, if we were gonna bore it, we could bore it while it was open, I would think. But if we were gonna open trench cut it, that would be the time to do it.
You might as well do it while you can get a conduit under there, anyway, just an idea.
Yeah, it's something to consider.
And I'm just curious why it doubled in time. You know, it was gonna be like a month and a half, and now it's like the entire summer. I'm just curious what happened.
I don't know what the month and a half estimate was, but it was purely an estimate if it came from me. Once the engineers got involved and brought their experience into the project, it just took it to where we're at now.
Are we gonna offer like, incentives to early completion or hold them to the fire, you know, with damages if they're late or anything like that?
Want to speak to that?
Good evening, board members. Mike New, Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure. We are talking with KSA and TxDOT about the timeline, specifically what damages might look like within the contract. There are certain things that KSA and thereby TxDOT can do and typically don't do with their contracts. What they have done, and Colin spoke to it a little bit, but we can probably share this more specifically after the fact. There's going to be phased durations. So phase 1A and B, those are the primary phases of the runway work. That's when the runway is going to be shut down completely. That's supposed to be 75 days for phase 1A, 10 days for phase 1B. There's also weather days built into that. There's other contingencies built into that. So, you know, you want to think of that as a maximum. So I would assume within the entire contract scope, there's probably some parameters for each one of those phases and about those getting done. That is the goal within the contract. Total is 145 days, but that 75 days is a real marker that will be highlighted within the solicitation. So all of that is going to be evaluated, and we'll expect bids to meet those standards when they do apply. So I don't have exact amounts or what that scope looks like, but those are factors that we are working with TxDOT and KSA, or the engineering contractor, to focus on within the solicitation.
Okay, thanks.
Colin, were you finished?
I'm finished, sure.
Okay. I didn't know if you were done.
No, ma'am, I'm done.
Okay, any questions about the runway closures during that time for Colin? Any board members?
I was gonna ask about contingencies built into that timeline, and you answered that question, so.
Okay.
Is it gonna be runway closure or airport closure? That's my question.
Yeah, true. Can we use the taxiway?
You know what I'm asking? It's legal.
I like your question, but
I think I said the runway would be
Yeah.
closed.
just the runway?
Well, in any area they're using for construction activities, yeah. You'll be able to get to your hangar if you need to get to your plane.
Is the runway and the taxiway gonna be closed at the same time?
Yeah, during runway construction, it would be assumed that the runway and taxiway would both be closed. During taxiway construction, the runway will be open.
Okay. All right, any questions from the public? Going once. Okay. Are we good? Okay. All right, I'm ready to call this, adjourn the meeting. Do I have?
I got one question.
Oh,
It's
we
not-
got
not-
it.
not germane-
Every
not germane
time.
to this. I just, the access road. Just wondering what the status of that whole.
Oh, okay, yeah, acquisition, for the, yeah, so we're gonna need some property to make that new driveway from Highway 7 to the proposed terminal area. We've been working with the landowner to grab a piece, a narrow piece of his land to make that connection between existing city property and the airport proper. Those negotiations are going well. I expect the survey to come in tomorrow and the appraisal and the environmental this week. So we're making headway in that. So we'll package those documents and whatever else TxDOT needs and send it off to them for their approval. And when that comes back, we'll get the attorneys involved and work out all the fine print. But the long and the short of it is negotiations are going well. There's just a lot of red tape involved when you're talking about acquisition for federally supported airports. So a lot of steps you wouldn't have to go through if you were buying the property. So we're working.
Progress.
Yeah, we're working through, but everything seems to be on track. So I would hope to close on that by the end of this year. I'm hoping.
Okay.
That's if we get a favorable reaction from TxDOT and get it quickly. I think the person we're buying the land from is ready. So there's been no hiccups, so.
And related to that, I'll just add, Colin's done a lot of great work. I know we've got other city staff. Larissa was spearheading a lot of that discussion too, and putting people in front of our legislators, trying to get as much action from every party that could provide support to this as we can. We're going to do as much as we can concurrently as well. You had mentioned, well, we don't want to just sit on our hands and wait 6 months for FAA to review this before we move. There are some preliminary things we can do. Whatever we can, we're going to try to get that ball rolling.
Excellent. Okay, good. And I got one more request. As this progresses, I don't think quarterly meetings are often enough.
We're not having them even quarterly, I don't think.
I mean, as a board, I think we need to get together more. Just, we can do that later, but I think we need to, and stay closer to it.
Okay.
Future agenda item.
To vote to accept the final, before y'all are dismissed, or is that?
No, it just says receive update.
Okay, I just wanna make sure we didn't get out of here
Yeah, no,
and
we're
miss
good.
the step that we need to do.
I'm just waiting to adjourn. This is like class. Is there any more questions?
One
Okay.
last comment.
Go ahead, Dave.
Need
You wanna
approach
come up?
the microphone.
Come on up. Yeah. While he's coming up, I will say, we're going to talk with Wolpert about bringing this to council as the next step. So we're going to move as quickly as we can on that.
Excellent.
Okay, most of you know me, David Zimmer, live on Highway 7 West. This all looks good. I'd just like to kind of remind people, and some of you already heard this, this year marks 30 years since there's been a T-hangar built at this airport. Not for lack of interest. There's been a lot of interest. There's been a lot of people turned away that wanted to build T-hangars. it's because there has not been a place provided for those T-hangers to be built. And from what I've heard here, that looks good, but I think that, and also, my understanding right now is you can't build a box hanger because we don't have fire protection and we don't have a water line down there for the fire protection, and something also about maybe some coating for the fire department or whatever. Those are immediate problems that I feel like need to be taken care of right now. This other stuff is all good, this is in the future, but we got immediate problems. And I think the T-hanger location, you know, that should be taken care of. Like I say, 30 years, this year, 30 years since we built a T-hanger. In that same time period, we built 7 box hangers. That's all. I built 2 of them. So there's not been any time when you couldn't build a box hanger out here, but I think we need to kind of make that a priority. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Stretch my legs a little bit. Stove up back there. Case Opperman, Director of Public Works, or City Engineer. Just wanted to speak to that. We do have in our CIP this year, funds for some amount of water line extension at the airport, so. So that is in discussion. AWAS, currently in the budget for a future year, so not immediate. But just wanted to put that out there just to address that.
Perfect,
Thanks,
thank
Dave.
you. Thanks for that report, thank you. All right, I'm gonna try to dismiss class again. Somebody go.
I make a motion, we adjourn. How about that?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Let's go.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.